Hello, we are continuing to explore Moscow. Behind my back is the Akademika Sakharova Avenue and Mashi Parivayeva Street, which succeeded the old Domnikovskaya Street. Today we are going to visit one of the famous Moscow skyscrapers, the Leningradskaya Hotel. Construction works began on Leningradskaya Hotel, the smallest of the 7 Moscow skyscrapers, was laid down just like the rest of them on September 7, 1947. The team of architects was given only 1 year to design the building before the construction began. The hotel opened its doors to visitors in 1956, featuring the welded steel frame as the other skyscrapers. Its shape is reminiscent of a Kremlin tower. Leonid Mikhailovich Polyakov, Beretsky, and their junior colleagues imbued the architecture of the Leningradskaya Hotel with many allusions to the 18th century architecture of Bazhenov and Kazakov, the favorite architects of Leningradskaya's creators. As we enter the Leningradskaya Hotel, we cannot help but feel awe. It's as if we are entering a fairy tale aristocrat's palace from Tsar Alexis's time. All this splendor reminds us that after the war, there was a great surge of interest in national culture. Not only the exterior of the hotel is reminiscent of the Russian Kremlins and church belfries, but its interior too is infused with the history of the 17th century Russia. The golden motifs were added to the cobalt background by Maria Alexandrovna Angelkin. She continued working on the ceiling until the last days of her pregnancy, and from here went to the delivery room, where she had her youngest daughter, Natalia. 3 days later, Maria Alexandrovna was back on the scaffolds working on her murals. It's incredible to think how dedicated the people of that time were to their work. Even though Maria Alexandrovna had a newborn baby, her work on the Leningradskaya Hotel was more important to her. Here, in the main hall, there are more references to the Grand Kremlin Palace. For example, these marble staircases with leopard statues. Granted, in the Grand Kremlin Palace, there are lions holding shields with Nicholas I's monogram. It is believed that both sculptures had been looted. They were handed over to the architects for the hotel's decoration by the trophy brigades. Such sculptures were produced in Germany in the 16th century and also in the 19th century, which saw the renewal of interest in the Renaissance and the era of knights. Our leopards were most likely also made in the 19th century. The skyscraper structure imposed certain constraints in terms of the materials that could be used, as the maximum beam load was set at 22 tons per square meter. This load had to include the weight of the outer walls, the utility lines, and the beams themselves. So if the ceiling above me had been carved out of real wood, it would have been very heavy and wouldn't have cleared the weight restrictions. This is why it was decided to use a technology well known to the Russian craftsmen of the past. All these exquisite patterns are not carved out of wood. They are bronze-coated papier-mâché. The central element of the entrance hall is this portal that resembles the holy door of 17th century Russian churches. The portal is made of bronze, and the plate behind it is made of the exquisite Shaksha quartzite. Shaksha quartzite was reserved for the most important buildings, such as most of the memorial architecture dedicated to Vladimir Lenin. The entrance halls are painted in the 17th century style. Here we can recognize motifs from the scrolls and murals of Tsar Alexis's time. This was also done by Maria Angelika. These floral patterns were her signature style, and in general, flowers were her favorite motif. She continued painting flowers until the end of her life, and she lived well into her 90s. The mirror frames were also created based on Maria Angelika's designs. It's important to note that Maria Alexandrovna was an artist, not a sculptor, which made the job extremely difficult. But she drew the full-size frames on cardboard in such great detail that the sculptor had no problem reproducing her ideas in 3 dimensions. This place is now known as the ballroom, but it was designed to be the hotel's biggest restaurant. Leningradskaya's dramatic, ornamental interior was created by a team of architects and Maria Alexandrovna Angelika. This interior features many details characteristic of the 18th century style, including these mirrors between windows. Normally, in the 18th century, mirrors were positioned across from the windows to bring in more light. But here, the architects placed them between windows to create the illusion of a larger space to spread out the walls. As the windows were facing the unseemly part of the Kalish street, for a while the architects considered filling them with stained glass. We are now in one of Leningradskaya's hotel rooms. This is a historical place, but it should be noted that some of the furnishings here have been recreated. Just as the hotel was almost finished, a famous resolution was issued calling for architectural extravagances to be removed, starting the war on luxurious furnishings. The public areas of the hotel had already been finished, but the rooms were not, and it's at this point in time that it was forbidden to install the furnishings from the original designs. Furniture commissions were called off. The beautiful Leningradskaya Hotel was punished for its beauty. After the commissions were called off, the hotel was sent furniture retired from other hotels. It was even demoted because of its architectural extravagances. By now, the attitude toward this architectural style has changed. And when the hotel was renovated in the 2000s, some of the rooms with the original decor were reconstructed. Those elements include moldings on the ceiling and the original 1950s style lamp. These lamps are certainly reminiscent of the famous crystal glass vases our grandmothers had in their cupboards, and of the lamps in the Sovietsky Hotel, which we have already visited on one of the previous episodes. You can find the link to the video in the description below. The holes in front of the staircases were also painted by Maria Angelika in the Russian style. This hall is also decorated by these floor lamps. It's another throwback to the church architecture and 17th century candle holders. We can see grapevine motifs. The iconostasis columns of the 17th and early 18th century temples were often similarly carved. Next comes a 3-piece candelabra, and then sitting on top of the lamp is a chamomile composition. Just like the rest of skyscrapers, this hotel is erected on a steel frame. And here we can observe the interesting way in which the artists and architects integrated the structure onto design. The hall connecting to the staircase has a low ceiling, and the crossbars that are part of the frame traverse the ceiling at low height. But we don't see them. Instead, we see a magnificent plafond in the 18th century style. Rather than reducing the space with a false ceiling, the architects made the hall higher and lighter with a 3-dimensional decoration. The garlands that trace the frame's contour also reminds us of the 18th century saccos. Leningradskaya's principal staircases are decorated with 15-meter chandeliers, which were registered in the Guinness Book of Records. Each chandelier consists of segments connected through this golden apple. We have thoroughly explored the amazing Leningradskaya Hotel. This is the only example of a Stalinist interior fully restored under the author's supervision. In 2008, when the hotel was being renovated, Maria Alexandrovna Angelka was still alive, and she consulted people working on the hotel. And this is it for our today's journey. Let's keep exploring Moscow together.